Welcome to As I Live and Grieve, a podcast that tells the truth about how hard this is. We're glad you joined us today. We know how hard it is to lose someone you love and how well-intentioned friends and family try so hard to comfort us. We created this podcast to provide you with comfort, knowledge, and support. We are grief advocates, not professionals, not licensed therapists. We are you.
Hi, and welcome back, everyone, to As I Live and Grieve. It's another week, another Tuesday morning as far as releases go, and our guest this week is Dr. Renee Alsarraf. Dr. Renee, thank you so much for coming to our podcast. Now, people might think because I say doctor that you're a clinician. We're going to talk about grief. We're going to take a little bit different slant on grief. Dr. Renee, could you give us a little bit of your background, please?
Sure. Well, I am a veterinary medical oncologist. So I have devoted my life, goodness, probably about 30 some years to treating cancer in animals. And while so many people think it's such a hard job, the subject is sad, but it fills me right back up to be able to make the connection with the family, to give them some more quality time with their four-legged loved one. And I've seen a lot of people go through a lot of grief. So it's my pleasure to be on your show. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're very, very welcome. Now, Dr. Renee has a new book out, and it's called Sit, Stay, Heal. And lest some of our listeners think that this is a self-help book, it is not. It is a memoir. It is Dr. Renee's story and stories of many instances in her life dealing with cancer, not only with dogs, but with herself. One of the ways the book is promoted is that our dogs or our pets can teach us some lessons about living well. Can you give me an idea what they mean by that? What kind of lessons might we learn from our pets?
So you are right? It's a common misconception that people think this is a book about how to care for our pets. And yet the book is about how our pets actually care for us. Mm-hmm. I hope what people see, I think the main theme of my book is that dogs not only serve as incredible support, but they are just fantastic guides to those who struggle. And we all struggle at times. And to get a front row seat to see the enormous power of the human-animal bond and how that plays in our life is just a gift.
I'm sure it is. I'm sure it must be. Now, in your book, I see stories of dogs. Are cats just as important in our lives? Can we learn from cats too?
Oh, absolutely. And there is, as you get deeper into the book, there is a story about a cat. Originally, I was going to do cats and dogs, but I found as I was going through that I just had more dog stories that coincided with my own backstory. I don't know if it was because those pet families opened up a little bit more or if their stories were just more obvious. But that's why I ultimately decided just to tailor it to dogs.
Well, that makes perfect sense. Now, I have owned both dogs and cats, and my perception of cats I've owned maybe a total of half a dozen in my life to this point. And my impression is that cats have personalities almost as individual as people do. So depending on your cat and your cat's personality, they may like to snuggle like your dog does, or they might not. Or if they do, it might only be on their terms. So I can see how dogs might be a little more consistent, maybe, if that makes sense, if I'm saying it right. They can be, I sense, a little more consistent in the way they interact with humans. I know that the dogs in my house now love it. First thing in the morning, they can't wait for my bedroom door to open so they can come say hi to Grandma. I'm grandma to them as well. And they just, are beside themselves when that door first opens because they know they're going to come in and I'm going to give them some love and rub their bellies and things like that. I also know when we get near our end of life, and even after that, that our pets, especially dogs, can become even more key players in that. They can sometimes insert themselves into the bed of someone who is dying because they sense that that person needs comfort, needs some warmth, needs some soothing, and they can be very loyal about that. Likewise, after we have a loved one who dies, our pets can offer us even more comfort and support, I think, even than some of our friends can. They don't offer those silly statements that some of our friends do inadvertently. What are your thoughts on that whole situation?
Oh my goodness. I agree with you 150%. I think as people read the book and they are presented with all these life lessons for dogs, it just reaffirms everything you've said. Dogs, I believe, have the sixth sense, and they can see us for who we really are. They can see us and understand us, I think, more than any one person can see us. And so they feel when we are sad, are grieving, are sick, are dying. Dogs are pack animals, right? They
Right.
survived out in the wild as pack
Right.
animals. They helped each other secure food. They were there for each other's safety. They would lay on each other for warmth. We now buy weighted blankets to try to mimic that.
Right.
And yet there's nothing better than when your dog crawls into bed with you if you're not feeling well and just lays alongside you or on you. It is a living, breathing, weighted blanket that gives you such joy. I think one of the other lessons in the book is that dogs are such incredible friends to us. We never have to put on a front around them. They are loyal and steadfast and unconditional partners in life, right? The word pet, I think, even seems so inadequate. And they can help us in that grieving process. They understand we don't have to offer anything up or say anything. Even just a look that they give us or the company that they provide us is incredibly healing. They make us feel loved.
Very true. And I know after I lost my husband, we had two dogs, two cockers. And after I lost my husband, one of my first thoughts was, oh, now I have to do the feeding and I have to let them out and I have to take them for a walk. But very quickly, I learned that they offered me more comfort than I offered them. They were there. They sensed when I needed just a little bit of support, and one or both would get up in my lap and just kind of cuddle and just be there. And they would stay there for hours until I was ready to move. And in those first days of my grief, I took great comfort in them. Eventually, they were aging as well, and one by one, I had to have them euthanized. And I realized I cared for those dogs a lot more than I ever thought I did. They were just so much comfort to me. So I agree with everything you've said. I love the stories in your book about some of the different dogs and their families and how you have helped when the dogs have cancer. You've helped the families have a little bit more time, as you say, with them. What's one of your favorite stories?
Oh my goodness. Favorite stories in the book or favorite stories in general?
Favorite story ever?
Oh, wow. I don't know that I could easily pick out one. In fact, there's 10 chapters plus an intro and conclusion in the book. But as I was going through and plotting to write the book, I have pages of pets and their families, dogs and cats, and actually even a snake, that I could have written about. There were so many that touched my life. I think one story that did not make it into the book is a gentleman who had come to me. He was about my age at the time, had a little Shih Tzu who had lymphoma. He decided to treat. The dog did great for a year and a half. But every time I would go and talk to that gentleman, he could never look me in the face or the eyes. He would always look down at the floor or his shoes, answer me in very short sentences or just one-word sentences quietly. And after a while, I just brushed it off to maybe him being shy.
Mm-hmm.
After the dog lost its battle, about a month later, I received a large manila envelope from him at work. And in it were photographs and a handwritten letter, which basically told me everything that I had wondered about for the last year and a half.
Oh.
His daughter, when she was 23, had passed away. And they had gotten the little Shih Tzu to help her through troubled times.
Okay.
And so the dog was all they had left of her that was still living and breathing. And so when the dog, a few months after her passing, became ill, they wanted to do whatever it would take.
Right.
What he didn't tell me at the time is that they couldn't afford the veterinary care.
Oh my.
So after his day job, he took a second job, the midnight shift at the local grocery store, cutting cold cuts for the morning shoppers the next day. Shout out to all of your listeners. Veterinarians have this big heart in general. Let us know if you're struggling. We'll find a way.
Yeah.
But to be able to help him and to be able to give him more time with his daughter's dog just meant the world to him.
Yeah. What a touching story. And listeners, the book is filled with stories like that. We talked a little bit about cats and dogs. Now, another piece of my story is after both my dogs were gone, the dogs that I had shared with my husband doted on those dogs. I would say, no people food, but they would always get his food. But after that, I thought, well, I'm getting older and I just cannot, I don't think I could care for a puppy the right way. So I opted to get a bird. And I got myself a green-cheeked conure who was hand-tamed. He was hand-raised from a baby. In fact, shortly after he hatched from the egg, I would go to the pet store once a week or twice a week so that I could handle this baby. And when it was time for adoption, we were ready and all friendly. Much to my surprise, Dr. Renee, that bird, her name was Phoebe, that bird was just so supportive of me as well. And she would spend the day. In the morning, I would get up and I would open the door to her cage. She was potty trained, would always go back to her cage. So she would come out, she'd come over, see what I was eating for breakfast. She might sit on my shoulder or the arm of the chair, and then she'd fly around and explore and everything. But it seemed every time I would be a little bit upset or stressed or something, she was always over there either trying to steal my pen or trying to peck off the key of the laptop or something just so I would give her attention. So even birds, pets in general, I have to say, offer us that unconditional love, some in various ways. So I just wanted to interject that as well. Do you think you're going to have a second book come out with more stories?
I would love to write a second book. But my hope right now in the short term, or maybe even the medium term, is I hope my book does a lot of good in the world. I hope it validates the grieving process. I hope it validates the human-animal bond. I hope it speaks to a lot of parents, even specifically moms, that we are working and juggling family and kids and then having to face or struggle with our own diagnoses and raise a teenager. But I hope it does a lot of good. Someone recently read the book and she said, she has a 5-year-old Westie who's healthy and great, named Oscar. She said after she read the book, she felt that she was a better pet parent. She felt that she was a better person and she was happier.
Nice.
I hope that's what readers take from the book.
Yeah, I think they will. I see the book having great success. The stories are wonderful, the ones I've read so far. Back to the grieving side of it. Now, I read on one of the websites where you were featured that when you were a student at Michigan State University, you realized that people grieved the loss of their pets. And so you started their first pet support group. What made you realize that there was this grief in people who lost their pets?
So I was a senior veterinary student in clinics following around seasoned clinicians, and it may not have been the C word or cancer, right? It could have been a whole
Right.
host of reasons, but I would see these families that were trying to hold back or stifle tears or keep a stiff upper lip. And the veterinarian's arms and his white lab coat were just straight down at his side. And the families would leave and they would take a little piece of my heart with them. I felt so sad for them, right? I felt their grief. I knew what they were going through because I had gone through it
Sure.
myself. And I felt that it would be so beneficial if they had some place to go with that. So it was for anyone who had lost any animal, dog, cat, pocket pet, horse, it didn't matter. Started it in Michigan State University's name, a pet loss support group. And as I was getting ready to graduate, I had tried to get enough donations to have it continue on, even though I wasn't going to be there anymore.
Right.
I had hired a therapist who specialized in bereavement counseling as well. And I'm told that it continues on.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. I know there seems to be a trend. Again, this is my personal opinion. There seems to be a trend lately in the whole end of life aspect for our pets. I'm finding now pet cremation services. I'm finding funeral homes that will do special services and special offerings for our pets. I'm finding a few pet bereavement groups around. Why do you think there's this trend? Is it because of this realization?
Thankfully, yes. I'm aging myself now, right? But back in the 70s and 80s, it wasn't socially acceptable to grieve the loss of your pet. It was horrible. And even sometimes today, people will come in to see me and they'll say, oh, my husband doesn't understand, or oh, my coworker doesn't understand. They think I should just get another one. It's not like this is a boat that has whatever broken and you just can go out and buy a new boat. It is, thank goodness that people are acknowledging that these are real feelings, real pain, real sorrow, and that people need time to process those feelings and to heal. You know, if you have, say, a dog for 10 or 12 years, that can take a while. And it's okay to understand that can take a while to, I don't want to say accept, but
adjust.
To just process.
To adjust.
To adjust.
Or to process. Process is a good word
Yes.
too. Just like when we lose a loved one, that takes a long time to process. And I find myself, much like I might have a memory of my husband or my mother or father, all who have gone on, I might have a memory that really kind of makes me tearful. I can have a memory of a dog I used to have that can make me just as tearful. The grief is the same. The intensity may be slightly different. The memories are every bit as treasured, though. Every bit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, you know, they provide this unconditional love and acceptance and judgment-free zone for us. And we don't really get that anywhere else. So it's hard when you lose a pet. What I'd like the listeners to know, and this is, I guess, my belief, but as hard as it is to lose a beloved four-legged family member, We'd all love their lifespans to be a whole lot longer than they are. Unfortunately, that's just not reality. But I do believe that each dog is placed into our lives at just the right moment to teach us a lesson or something that we needed to know. Sometimes not even realizing that we needed to learn something or we needed some hole, in a sense, filled. And I know that even though I've lost pets along the way, I've been blessed that I have had the experience of a few, or for some people, many pets in my lifetime.
Right, right. Another situation recently with the pandemic. Do you think the pandemic has been responsible for this upsurge in rescue animals, people adopting rescues? I see actually more and more ads and promotions from rescue foundations and rescue services. Do you think the pandemic was responsible for that?
I do, and maybe that's a very, very, very small silver lining. Not that there's a lot of
Yeah.
good,
We have to
right?
take what we
But
can get sometimes.
exactly, yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's been great.
It has, and I'm glad that people are considering the rescues more. But there also seems to be more rescues now. I'm in upstate Western New York, and we actually have some of our rescues that will drive to an area that's had a disaster. They've been to Tennessee, they've been to Florida, they've been to New Orleans, and they will bring back animals from rescue shelters down there that were never claimed after the disaster and thing. So there's this entire movement on. And I like to think it's because people realized that at a time when they were isolated through no fault of their own, a pet could at least offer them that comfort. They may not have acknowledged that, but I believe that's where this whole trend has come from.
Absolutely. And not only comfort, but companionship.
Yes, yes. I used to talk to my dogs. I mean, it was either that or the TV, and it just made more sense to talk to the dogs. And in their way, they responded, in different ways here and there. And anybody can, do you want to go for a ride? Do you want to go out? Their dogs will respond. So the entire interaction between people and their pets to me is one that always makes me smile. Always makes me smile. And it's very sad when you see the ads like from the Humane Society of the dogs that are neglected and just abused and everything like that. The rescue we have actually was abandoned at the side of the road with a litter of pups, and all the pups were adopted, but the mom wasn't. And so we took the mom in, and she's a lovely, lovely dog. So our dogs, especially, can teach us many, many things. Now, the first thing I think of that's a huge, huge problem for people is stress. I don't think I've ever seen a dog stressed. Is there a medical reason, or have you seen dogs that are stressed?
I have seen dogs that are stressed.
Really?
I think it comes out more as anxiety,
Okay.
Or if they're concerned or worried about a situation
Okay.
that they're in.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, I've seen separation anxiety. I've seen that actually in my own dogs, but I was kind of thinking more about the pressure that a lot of times we allow ourselves to be put in when we're just overwhelmed, completely overwhelmed with everything.
Well, but I think the difference is because dogs live in the moment, right?
Mhm.
So they mirror for us mindfulness. I know that maybe I'll go to a spa weekend with a girlfriend and I think I'm new and improved and I'm going to be more mindful, and by Tuesday that thought goes right
Oh,
out the
yeah.
window. But dogs live in the moment, just like you said how your grand dogs love to come and greet you every morning. They're happy to be alive. They're happy that you're there. They don't fret about the what ifs. I know that I can fret with the best of them.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to control the uncontrollable. But Dogs don't do that. And so maybe that's why you're saying, which makes sense, that they don't stress. And what a waste of energy, right? I
true.
know.
Very true. And they probably don't even worry about tomorrow. It's just
not at all.
So that's a great lesson we could learn from our pets. Try to live more in the moment. Is there another lesson you can think of that we could learn from our pets?
That dogs celebrate their imperfections. You know, one of the dogs in the book is a bloodhound, and she, during her therapy, gained 50 pounds.
Oh my gosh.
Lumbers when she walks, has incredible wrinkles, strings of rope you draw, and she loved life.
Oh my goodness.
And I know that I had gained some weight for some other reason, and I lamented that. I felt horribly about myself. And how foolish that is, right? Here we all strive to stay alive and feel good, and yet I was wasting my days feeling badly about that.
Some incredible lessons indeed from the stories in your book. It is about that time now that we get ready to wind down. And before I start to say my farewells to everyone, I would like to turn the mic over to you and let you tell people a little bit more about your book, maybe about where you're going to be soon for any book signings or anything like that. Anything else you might like to tell them. This is your turn to speak directly to them without me leading you with questions.
Oh my goodness, you're so sweet. Thank you so much. So the book, Sit, Stay, Heal, What Dogs Can Teach Us About Living Well, is a true story. Every chapter is about a different dog patient of mine, and either what that family learned from their dog or what I learned. And then woven through all the chapters is my backstory. It is truly life lessons from dogs and how they are just incredible guides for all of us who struggle. I am on a book tour. I have done a bunch of book signings. You can find out about a lot of stuff. The book has a website, sitstayhealbook.com.
Well, I visited there in hopes that you'd be coming to Rochester, New York for a book signing, but I didn't see you there. So I didn't see any place close to me, but there are some Zoom sessions and everything as well. So I encourage our listeners to check it out. The other thing I want to say, and I've said this about a couple other books for guests that we've had who are authors, the holidays are coming. Books sometimes are great, great gifts. And it's something that is read, sometimes shared, sometimes put on a shelf. And I know I go back to my favorite books time and time again to reread a chapter or just to kind of thumb through and remember it. I have to say, this would be the perfect gift for the holidays for a pet lover, especially a dog lover. And maybe you know someone that has either lost a dog or maybe their dog is really getting near that point of life where the big question is going to be coming up pretty soon. And it's hard. This book with the stories will fill the reader with hope and inspiration and just a general warm, loving feeling. So go get the book, everybody. Okay, time has come now where I have to sign off. So to our listeners, I want to say thanks for coming back. Thanks for listening again. I love every one of you wherever you are in the world. And I hope you come back again next week as we all continue to live and grieve.
Thank you so much for listening with us today. Do you have a topic that you'd like us to cover, or do you have a question from one of our episodes? Please email us at info@asiliveandgrieve.com and let us know. We hope you will find a moment to leave a review, send an email, and share with others. Join us next time as we continue to live and grieve together.